You may be doing all the right things to regulate your nervous system, deep breathing, meditation, tapping, and still have these tiny habits throughout your day that are quietly keeping your body on high alert. In this video, I'll show you which everyday habits may be creating unnecessary stress without you even realizing it, 10 changes that can help you feel calmer and more grounded throughout the day, and how to use them without turning nervous system regulation into one more thing you have to get right. Because I think sometimes we imagine that regulation only happens when we intentionally sit down to do something calming. And those practices can absolutely help. But your body is also paying attention to what happens throughout the rest of your day. How often you rush, switch between tasks, check your phone, take in upsetting information, worry about what might happen next, make yourself available to everyone all the time. And I actually learned this through something incredibly simple. When my children were younger, I was at a point where I knew something needed to change. I needed a break. I needed some space to breathe. So while my youngest son was napping, I decided to start putting my phone on Do Not Disturb, placing a sticky note on my bedroom door, and giving myself about 15 or 20 minutes where I was just unavailable. It wasn't some elaborate self-care routine, but that tiny habit began teaching my body something really important. I was allowed to pause. The world could and would keep going without immediate access to me. And my needs mattered too. And eventually, that became one of the most powerful regulating habits in my life. And it's actually number 10 on this list. But first, let's start with one of the most common ways that we accidentally tell our bodies that something is urgent, sometimes before the day has ever even really begun. Have you ever noticed how quickly a normal morning can start to feel like an emergency? You're checking the time, making coffee, answering a message, going for something that you need, and already thinking about everything that has to happen later in the day. And then someone's moving too slowly, traffic isn't moving fast enough, or the computer takes an extra few seconds to load, and you can actually feel yourself getting tense. Nothing terrible is happening, but your body is receiving the message that everything is urgent. Rushing can become a normal way of moving through our days, that we don't even recognize as stress anymore. We rush through getting ready, eating, driving, working, and sometimes even through things we're doing to relax. And multitasking adds to that feeling. We might think we're saving time by doing several things at once, but our brains are actually switching back and forth between them, and it can leave us feeling scattered and cause us to make more mistakes. And it makes everything feel a little bit harder than it needs to. So, one small habit I've been practicing is what I call one thing, one pace. It doesn't mean you have to move slowly all day or stop being productive. It just means bringing our attention back to the one thing that's actually in front of you. Sometimes I have to remind myself nothing's on fire because being impatient doesn't make another person move faster. Hurrying doesn't make traffic disappear, and rushing through a task often creates mistakes that take even more time to fix. So the next time you feel yourself rushing, try choosing one thing and giving it your full attention just for a few minutes. Take a slower breath. Let your shoulders drop a little. And remind your body that this particular moment doesn't have to be treated like an emergency. Once you stop trying to hold and do everything all at the same time, though, you might start to notice just how many unfinished tasks are still moving around inside your mind. Have you ever gone to bed tired, but the moment your head hits the pillow, your mind starts listing everything you need to remember? The appointments that you need to schedule, something you need from the store, a bill you need to pay, what you need for work tomorrow. But your mind is still standing guard over the entire next day. And I think this is especially common for women because we often carry so much of the invisible planning, remembering what everyone needs, anticipating what might go wrong, and trying to keep track of the little details that keep life moving. One of the simplest things I've done to create more peace is stop expecting my brain to hold all of it. I write things down. Research from a Baylor Sleep Lab study found that people who spent just 5 minutes writing down a specific to-do list before bed fell asleep faster than the people who wrote about things that they'd already completed. Now, the list didn't make the responsibilities disappear, it just gave their mind somewhere else to put them. I often make a short list in the evening of what I need to do the following day. I put appointments directly in my calendar, and once something is written down, I don't have to keep thinking about it, trying to keep track of everything in my head. And the same idea can work with your physical environment. Your keys, your wallet, your purse, your work bag, and the things that you use every day can each have a specific home. I started doing this after seeing how much unnecessary stress can be created by searching for missing keys, a wallet, and things like that when it's already time to leave. Now I put my keys and my purse in the same place when I come home, and I keep everything I need for work together so I'm not searching for it early in the morning. It's such a small thing, but peace is sometimes very practical. When the list remembers what you need for you, your belongings have a dependable place to live, your nervous system doesn't have to keep solving the same problem over and over again. But not everything that takes up space in our minds comes from our own responsibilities. A lot of it is being delivered directly through our phones. Have you ever picked up your phone to check a message and looked up 20 minutes later with no idea how you ended up watching someone organize their closet? You may have only been sitting there, but your nervous system has taken in a lot. You've seen other people's opinions, bad news, advertisements, arguments, beautiful homes, perfect vacations, and several things that the platform thinks that you should buy next. And that's a lot of stimulation for a nervous system that may already be feeling tired or overwhelmed. Social media is designed to keep our attention moving from one thing to the next. There's always another video, another post, another dopamine hit waiting just below the one we're looking at. And while we're scrolling, we may also be comparing ourselves, judging ourselves, or absorbing emotional information that we never intentionally chose. Research has linked problematic social media with anxiety, sleep problems, and lower feelings of well being. One randomized study found that reducing smartphone screen time for 3 weeks improved stress, sleep quality, and overall feelings of well being. And that doesn't mean that we need to delete every app or stop enjoying social media, but it can be helpful to notice when you're choosing to use it and when it's simply choosing for you. One simple habit is to pause before opening an app and ask yourself, what am I coming here to do? Maybe you want to answer a message or check in with someone or watch something that makes you laugh. But when that purpose is complete, you could choose to put the phone back down instead of automatically allowing the next thing to pull you in. And pay attention to how you feel afterwards. Do you feel connected and inspired, relaxed? Or do you feel more restless and distracted and depleted than you did before? Your attention is part of your nervous system environment, and becoming more intentional about where you place it can create a surprising amount of peace. Social media, though, isn't the only kind of information that can make the body feel on alert. For many people, the news has become a source of stress that follows them around all day. One small habit that has brought me so much peace is that I just stopped watching the news. Now, I still want to know what's happening in the world, but the way the news is often presented can make every event feel immediate, personal, and urgent, even when there is absolutely nothing that we can do about it in that moment. The same frightening story may be repeated over and over again with dramatic music, alarming headlines, and constant speculation about what could happen next. And our nervous system doesn't experience that as neutral information. Research has found that exposure to negative news can increase anxiety, sadness, and worry, and even cause us to become more fearful about problems in our own lives that have nothing to do with what we just watched. So I no longer allow the news to decide when my body is going to receive upsetting information. I choose when I take it in and where I get it from and how much information I need. Usually, I skim the headlines from a reputable source at a time that I feel grounded enough to absorb them. Then I decide whether there's anything I actually need to investigate further. And if something major is happening, I hear about it one way or another. This isn't about ignoring the world or pretending difficult things aren't happening. It's about staying informed without allowing every crisis to have unlimited access to my nervous system. I've also noticed that my conversations with people are no longer dominated by whatever frightening story is being repeated that day. We talk more about our actual lives, and I really love that. You can care deeply about what's happening in the world without living inside the news all day. And once you begin turning down some of that constant input, you may notice something that feels a little unfamiliar at first. Quiet. Have you ever noticed how hard it can be to do almost anything without something playing in the background? We listen to a podcast while getting ready, scroll while eating, watch something while folding the laundry, and sometimes even reach for our phones during a few quiet moments that we actually have. And none of those things is necessarily bad. But even educational and entertaining content is still more information for your brain and nervous system to process. When every empty space is filled, your body gets very little time to settle, catch up, or just be present with what's already happening. That's why one small habit I really value is creating a short period of silence every day. Not perfect silence, not a formal meditation, though I enjoy that too. Just a few minutes with no podcasts, no television, or no scrolling, or pressure to learn, improve, or accomplish anything. You might drink your coffee without picking up your phone, or fold laundry without turning something on. You might sit outside for 5 minutes and notice the air, the temperature, and the sounds around you. At first, the quiet might seem a little uncomfortable. You might notice your mind reaching for stimulation almost immediately. But that doesn't mean that the habit isn't. It might just mean that your nervous system has become so accustomed to constant input that the quiet feels unfamiliar. You don't have to force your mind to become blank. The practice is just to stop adding more for just a little while. That small pause gives your body a chance to land and be present in the moment before moving on to what comes next. Now, reducing input can help prevent some activation, but stress will still happen. And when it does, sometimes the body needs a little help moving that energy through. Have you ever had a stressful conversation or read an upsetting message or finished a difficult day and then just carried on as though nothing had happened? The moment might be over, but your body can still be holding that. You might notice tight shoulders or shallow breathing or clenched jaw, restlessness, or the feeling that you just can't fully settle. And that's because stress is not only something that we think about, it also creates a physical response in the body. And sometimes what the body needs most is movement. And this doesn't mean doing a full workout. It could be just taking a short walk or stretching for a minute or shaking out your hands and arms, dancing to one song, or gently tapping on your body. Animals naturally shake off after a threatening experience once the danger has passed. The movement helps them release the activation they were carrying. We tend to override that impulse. We stay still, we keep working, we try to think our way back to calm. One practice I sometimes do is called waking up the chi. And this involves gently tapping down my arms and back up, down my body, and my legs, and back up the other side. I do the other side. And this helps move some of that stuck energy and reconnect with my body. Sometimes I use it at the beginning of the day or after something stressful, or even when I need to feel a little more awake and present. Research consistently reports movement as a way to improve mood and reduce stress. But to me, the most important part is simply noticing that the body may need transitioning out of the stressful moment. Sometimes it doesn't need another explanation, it just needs to move. Of course, there will still be times when you can't go for a walk or shake out your arms. And that's when a much smaller tool can help. Have you ever noticed yourself letting out a deep sigh after something stressful? Sometimes your body does that naturally, as if it's trying to release a little of the tension that you've been holding. When we feel anxious, overwhelmed, or deeply focused, we might start breathing more shallowly without even realizing it. We might also hold our breath while reading a difficult message or working through a problem or waiting for something to happen. And that can quietly reinforce the feeling that the body needs to stay alert. One tiny habit that can help is to intentionally lengthen our exhale with a sigh or a gentle hum. Research on structured breathing has found that even 5 minutes a day can improve mood and reduce physiological arousal. One technique that showed especially encouraging results was the physiological sigh. You simply breathe in through your nose and take one more little breath in at the top, and then you let out a long, slow exhale through your mouth. Like this. You can repeat that 2 or 3 times. And if you prefer, you can hum gently as you breathe out instead. The vibration of the hum can feel soothing through, and humming naturally encourages a longer exhale without having to think too hard about your breathing. It also stimulates the vagus nerve, which activates the parasympathetic side of our nervous system. You could use this while sitting in your car, before responding to a difficult message, after leaving a stressful room, or anytime you notice your body beginning to feel tense. You don't need to force a huge breath or do it perfectly. Just let the exhale be a little longer than the inhale. One sigh isn't going to solve every problem, of course, but it can help your body soften enough to meet the next moment from a slightly calmer place. And sometimes the stressful moment isn't even happening around us at all. It's happening in our imagination. Have you ever noticed yourself having an entire stressful conversation in your head before it's even happened? Maybe you're imagining what someone might say, how badly something could go, or all the ways the future situation could fall apart. And even though none of it is happening in that moment, your body might already be reacting. Worry and rumination can keep the stress response going long after the original moment has passed, or before the situation you're worried about has even begun. So, one habit I've been practicing is noticing when I'm rehearsing a problem instead of actually solving one. Sometimes I simply remind myself, this is not happening right now. And then I ask, is there one useful action that I can take? If there is, I take that step. But if there's not, I just try to stop treating the worst case scenario as though it's the only possible outcome. Sometimes I even make a little game out of it, and I imagine all the ways the situation could actually work out in my favor. What if this conversation goes better than I expect? What if the solution turns out easier than I think? What if I'm supported in ways that I can't see yet? I might also remind myself that everything is always working out for me. That doesn't mean ignoring a real problem or pretending that everything is perfect. It just helps me to stop using my body to live through a painful future that may never even happen. Planning gives you the next step. Worrying gives you the feelings of doing something while keeping you stuck in the same stress response. And one of the fastest ways to come out of that imagined future is to bring your attention back to what's actually happening inside your body right now. Have you ever reached the end of the day and suddenly realized you were thirsty, hungry, exhausted, or holding tension in your shoulders, and you'd been ignoring it for hours? I think many of us have become very skilled at pushing through. We keep working, we keep helping, and we keep getting things done. And the body keeps sending us these little signals that we need something, but we don't stop long enough to listen. And over time, that can create a kind of disconnection from ourselves. So, one tiny habit I've found really helpful is to pause for just a moment and ask, what am I feeling in my body right now? Maybe at that moment, you notice that your chest is tight, or your jaw is clenched, or maybe your stomach feels uneasy, or you're breathing shallow, or your body just feels tired. Then ask one more question. What do I need in these next 10 minutes? Not for the rest of your life, just for the next 10 minutes. Maybe you need a glass of water, or a stretch, or a few slow breaths, something to eat, or just to sit down for a minute. Sometimes the answer is very simple. And when you give your body one small thing that it's asking for, you begin building trust with yourself. Your body learns when I speak, someone's listening. And that is such an important part of nervous system regulation. Safety doesn't always come from what's happening around us. It comes from knowing that we'll notice and respond to our own needs. And sometimes what our body needs most is not another tool or task. It needs to know that for a little while, I have some time for myself. And this brings me back to that sticky note I used to place on my bedroom door when my kids were younger. Looking back, I realized the most powerful part of those 15 to 20 minutes was not just what I did during them, it was that for a short period of time, I was unavailable. Today, we carry our phones almost everywhere, and there can be this unspoken expectation that we should respond as soon as someone reaches out. A message comes in, and we think, I should answer that. Then another one arrives. And before we know it, the little break we promised ourselves never really happens. But just a couple of decades ago, people regularly left the house without a phone. Someone might call, receive no answer, and they would just try again later. Being unreachable was normal then. And I think our nervous systems miss that. So, one of the most regulating habits that you can create is a period of intentional unavailability. Turn on Do Not Disturb. Put the phone in the other room if you need to. Close the door if you can. And give yourself a few minutes when nobody is asking anything of you. You don't need to use that time productively. You might sit outside or stretch, close your eyes, journal, or just be still and breathe. When I first began doing this, so much of my life had been centered around everyone else's needs. Taking that time began teaching me that my needs mattered too. It was the most loving thing I could have done for myself at that time. It also showed my children that taking care of ourselves is healthy. It's not selfish, and it does not mean that we love anyone else less. That little peaceful space taught my nervous system that even when life felt busy or chaotic, I could come home to myself. And sometimes that's what regulation really looks like. Just creating one small moment where your body can feel that nothing is being demanded of it and that it's safe to rest. But these habits are most useful when you practice them consistently before your stress becomes overwhelming. So, what can you do when your anxiety is already taken over, your chest feels tight, your thoughts are racing, and telling yourself to calm down just isn't working? EFT tapping is one of my favorite tools for helping the body move out of that stress response. And in this next video, I'll guide you through a tapping practice that you can use when you need to feel calmer quickly. Click right here and we'll do it together.